let's switch gears. We're gonna switch to Metal Gear. But on PlayStation that year, 1998, September 3rd, Ocarina of Time was yet to come out, and we get Metal Gear Solid, which is a remake of a kind of obscure, not a remake, sorry, a sequel to a kind of obscure NES MSX game that people didn't really know and play in the mainstream, but boy did this game become mainstream.
I mean, Metal Gear Solid, you know, I've always hesitant to call something the first anything, because there's always like a progenitor that did something earlier, but it's the stealth game. It's the game that stealth games were one way before Metal Gear Solid, and they were a different way after that, and they owe it all to that franchise. I feel like Metal Gear strikes the perfect balance, just like Banjo-Kazooie struck the perfect balance of sort of collecting things. Metal Gear later would fly off the rails and just become insane. Just the story's insane, and the guy's got this arm that's haunted and all this crazy stuff. And Metal Gear had crazy zaniness in it, but it was sort of one step simpler. And so it had this complex, complicated story full of, you know, psychics and double crosses. But it was really interesting.
And strange conversations at the most inopportune times, right? Like you're crawling through a tunnel, you're talking about like rats and, you know.
But it wasn't too much at the time, and it was still all about the
story
gameplay.
Wasn't too much, is what you're saying.
Right.
The game was overly complicated, I thought at the time.
Oh, I didn't.
But in a way that I wanted to probe it and explore it more.
It was more like it was an open-ended proposition, right? It wasn't like get this gun, go in this room, kill these 3 guys, go to the next room. It was very much, you know, asking the player to come in and figure out their own solution to the problem.
And then it was so great because the game didn't take itself seriously all the time, right? Like it was a game that was completely aware of it being a video game, whereas a lot of other games tried to like get rid of the HUD and make the cinematics, make it look more like a movie, like thinking of Resident Evil. This game basically put a giant exclamation mark over the heads of their characters, right?
And it accepted that was kind of ridiculous, right? I think we're going to see this also. We're going to talk about Fallout 2 in a little bit. Fallout 2 did the same sort of fourth wall breaking thing where they said, we're a game, it's supposed to be slightly insane, so like let's just embrace that.
Metal Gear was really revolutionary. It was really Kojima starting to stretch, you know, stretch his wings a little bit. You know, things like just hiding in the cardboard box, that humor, but you know, in the early stages when the snow is falling and you're outside, guards can see your footsteps and follow you to where you're hiding. Like stuff like that felt like a really big deal, and it was sort of outside of the scope of what we thought video games could be at that time. Things like you were starting to get some of those weird Easter eggs that again would kind of go too far. Like in later Metal Gear games, if you shoot a glass that has ice in it, then the ice would land and melt over the course of like an hour. This game had some of that detail, but in a more practical way. Like if you put on a box and then a dog can pee on the box, and then you can sneak past the wolves later because they have that scent on it. Like,
and it used the rumble in the controller, all
the
like
Psychomantis boss
Easter eggs,
gimmicks.
It read you.
The bosses are all great. It's a really a game about tactical what do they call it?
Tactical espionage
action, which is stealth is what we call that now. But there's also these boss fights, and they're cinematic boss fights, and they're
all different.
Yeah, they're all very different, and sometimes you don't even fight the boss really. And I think that's really interesting. And they all have kind of they're paired with an animal, right? So are they?
Yeah, I guess they have animal names.
Revolver Ocelot, like they all have this kind of thing. Psychomantis, and it always reminded me of like that era of like Mega Man X, where there was like these robot bosses that were all tied with animals, and it's just like it's that early that it kind of is similar to that kind of thing.
Full of moments like that, like those footsteps. Like you have these cigarettes in your inventory, and then you don't know what they're for. They don't know what you're for, and then you smoke the cigarettes, and then that smoke lets you see these lasers that you need to avoid. These just awesome.
But at first, doesn't it take down your health? Like there's so many. You're like, wait, why did I do that? Right?
The moment that stabs out
the magazines, right?
You can distract people.
Is that the original?
Magazines. It might have just been in the remake.
Yeah, I get some of that conflated in my head. There's a torture scene in that game, and it's really hard. I mean, maybe it's not. I remember it being.
You can beat it. You can ignore it or beat it, right?
Well, that's the thing. That's what's really interesting about it is you have to alternate these button presses, and it's really, really hard to do, which is a pretty standard video game thing. And the Metal Gear twist is that you can submit and give up.
Yeah.
And you only get one try. If you die, you go back to your last save, which could potentially have been before a boss fight, although players wised up and would eventually learn to save after that boss fight. And I think it's just really interesting that it gives you the choice. It's like, hey, if this is too hard for you, you can submit to the torture. And then you don't know it at the time, but you'll get the bad ending after that.
Wow.